Our nation's capital recently passed the grim milestone of 200 homicides for the year, and that's the first time it crossed that mark since 2003.
And we bring in now the chief of D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department, Robert J. Contee III. Chief, thank you for being here. And I have to ask this. I mean, there's some reports I read that so many of the victims are younger and the offenders are even very young. So I guess the first question here is, who's killing whom in your city right now that is causing this spike?
Yeah, so right now, our spike is we're at about 10% over where we were this time last year. We're at about 214 homicides as of today. One is one too many in our city, clearly. When you talk about who's committing the crimes, sometimes it's repeat violent offenders. In some instances, sometimes it's younger people. We've seen an increase in juveniles arrested this year for homicide. Sometimes it's just people who are involved in petty disputes. So I think it really runs the gamut.
And Chief, I know that you're dealing with one of the big problems in this is illegal firearms. And I know you've partnered with the ATF to try and increase the reward for information leading to people turning in those illegal firearms. How are you succeeding on that front? What more needs to be done?
Yeah, we're paying out thousands of dollars at this point, up to $7,500 for illegal firearms. That program is going well. We've seen an increase in tips that have been coming into the Metropolitan Police Department. The thing that's unique about this particular program is that we're not really focused so much on the conviction. We're focused on just the arrest. An anonymous tip that leads to the arrest of an individual, to getting an illegal firearm out of the hands of someone who shouldn't have it in our community, makes our city safer.
Chief, what are your theories? Look, there are a number of cities going through spikes like this, and even spikes in violent crime. You all actually not seeing a spike necessarily in violent crime, but you are seeing a spike in homicide. So what are the factors, as you see it, that are attributing to this spike in homicides in your city?
TJ, yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's really the same across many of the major cities. It's a combination of things. There's no one thing. We talk about hurt people hurting other people. We talk about the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic. We talk about some of the socioeconomic pressures that people are experiencing. Sometimes you just got bad people in community. And I think it's a combination of all of those things that we are seeing contributing to violent crime. During the course of the pandemic, and while we're still very much in it, during the course of the pandemic, we went from relational interactions with people to primarily transactional relationships with people. And I think that has had an impact on crime in many of the major cities and not so major cities really across the United States. We're seeing this everywhere. Big towns, small towns, we're seeing it everywhere.
Chief, you've been on the job in your role for just a matter of months, but I know you're tackling this from all different angles. And among those different ways of approaching this, you have decided to go into the community and talk to teenagers. You held a summit with them earlier this month. Did you learn anything from them?
Absolutely. While we were having our summit with these young people, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we do is give them an opportunity to have their voices amplified, not just one section of our youth population, but really a cross section. And this is one of many conversations that I'm having with our young people and I'm having with community members all across our nation's capital. I believe that their voices should be heard simply because if you want to find really how to address problems, I think you have to go closer to the pain. And our young people oftentimes are closest to the pain, yet their voices are not at the table. So that's one of the things that I'm doing here in Washington, D.C. to really understand and respond to the needs of the young people in our nation's capital.
Chief, do you have people resigning and retiring from your department faster than you can recruit? You are down 200 officers today from where you were just a year ago. Do people are you having a hard time convincing more and more people to be police officers these days?
Yeah, it's a challenging time. Anywhere you look, it's a challenging time for law enforcement. But, there are also things that I'm proud about. We just expanded our police cadet program where we are employing young people from communities between the ages of 17 and 24. We just graduated a class of all D.C. residents. One of the first times this had happened, and the majority of the people in that class were women. 10 women, 9 men, all from all from DC neighborhoods that will now be patrolling in communities across our nation's capital. So I look forward to really engaging community members in that space and allowing folks to look at the police department as an option. While we have had trouble with respect to retaining the number of people that we should have, around 3,800, it has not deterred our efforts to continue recruiting and really look at the youth in our community as well as an option to build the pipeline of law enforcement officers in the nation's capital.
Chief, we know you have your hands full, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to talk to us. Your message is an important one. Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Robert J. Contee III, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.